Okay, alright. I felt like I had to get into some sort of mood to try and at least get through this kind of episode, considering that there wasn't necessarily much on the table, and the first idea that came to my mind where it was just kind of thinking, you know what? I've been relatively positive. I kind of enjoy a lot of the stuff that's been coming out and what I've been talking about over the past couple of weeks, but to be fair, it's just been kind of like nothing has really changed and not a lot has given me any sort of opportunity to speak anything negative, which is kind of a little bit of a backwards sort of deal to go through, but to be fair, sometimes I'm just a little upset, and sometimes I'm a little angry for a handful of things that have been going on in the industry, and for a handful of the shows that I've been watching over the past couple of months. So I decided that, at least in this point in time, one episode I'd be able to at least go all out and just decide to say, hey, what are some things that you don't like? Considering that I know that there's so many positive things that you can say about this industry, so many positive things that you can say about the shows and how exactly they change us as people, and the amount of positive outcomes that you can actually go through in enjoying a piece of media, but guess what? Sometimes it is not fucking worth it. Sometimes it is not a good opportunity, or it is not a good experience for you to spend, at this point in time, even for a 12-episode series, it's not even worth 4 hours of your time. It is not even close. You would want your time back, even if you pirated that shit. Even if you really wanted to at least get some semblance of not necessarily profit, but some semblance of having your time being worth something, the fact that you decided to pump in 4 hours just to watch a show that was so much of a piece of shit that you couldn't necessarily wait to at least give an opportunity to vent about it, you'd just say, hey, at this point in time, I spent nothing, and even I want my money back. So before we get into that, I guess there's a lot that has happened over the past 2 weeks, so March 14th to March 28th in 2011, so I guess the majority of it I'm just going to rapid fire at least for this week's episode, and then give much more in-depth, especially for a handful of topics that are essentially like really important moving forward for the rest of the year. But I mean, goddamn dude, most of these are worth it, but unfortunately some of them are actually going to have to just be blitzed through just so we can make it through the majority of this episode. So, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0. Guess what? It's already made 3.3 billion yen in its first week, equaling 30 million. I can't wait to see this until when it decides to come across the seas and into our theaters, because holy fuck, man. I really want to see this movie, considering that we had more than enough of an opportunity. If the entire pandemic didn't necessarily happen, I would have been able to catch this by the end of the year. There's already 15 minutes up on the internet, up on YouTube, or at least some portion of it that you'll be able to watch for free. I'm not going to touch it until I get my ass into a theater and sit down and finally be able to watch this in its entirety for a production that has spanned nearly a decade. In terms of Attack on Titan, what has happened over the past 2 weeks has been absolutely ridiculous. I mean, considering that for the majority of the weekends, I guess we're just going to be stretching on for 3 of them in this case, considering that there was a magnitude 4.6 earthquake that happened in the very middle of the airing of episode 73, which in this case would have been episode 14 of the final season. So it ended up getting delayed to the week afterwards. So 73 and 74 came out on the same day, and then leading in episode 75, which just aired this weekend. So the only thing that I'm going to say about this is that, as everybody else has heard, this was the first half. Not necessarily the full half, but at least in this case, it is going to be the first part of the final season of Attack on Titan. That was honestly the biggest question on my mind, because from what I'd heard and the amount of people that were thankfully not spoiling me on the sense that how this series was going to end, considering that it's only a handful of months until the manga finally reaches its conclusion, it was just going to be a question of, okay, are we going to finish this off with a feature-length film that's going to be 2 to 2.5 hours long, or are we actually going to be spreading this out and actually making it the same deal as Season 3 and making it a split core sort of deal? And so, we got the split core. Attack on Titan's second part of its final season is going to be airing winter 2022. I can't fucking wait. It is... oh, dude. It is insane. I'm not going to say anything, but y'all need to catch up. No anime films have been nominated for the 93rd Oscars. Which is kind of unfortunate, but then looking at the set, The majority of them, which I absolutely loved, so we're talking about Masaki Yuasa's You Ride Your Wave. We're talking about the 5 to 6 year passion project known as Ongaku Our Song, which I watched about 2 weeks ago, and like, dude, the final 20 minutes of that film are just more than enough of a sight to behold. Even though it was incredibly simple, it was incredibly like a base setting for like a garage band to kind of like just bring themselves up, and it's like, yo, we want to learn music. And we just want to just kind of see what we're able to make in the baseline of our own homes. And many will say it's incredibly boring. I will admit, for the first half, it's a little wishy-washy, and you don't really essentially know what you're doing here. But by the second time, or by the second half rolls around, you'll know exactly what they're going for. But the surprise and the absolute audacity of one of the main characters to basically just pop out one of these mystery instruments just to completely blow him and all of his other companions out of the water, it's absolutely fucking insane. You have to watch this. Go watch Ongaku. It is, if you are at all interested in like garage band, like rock and music and anything related to those lines, fucking go give it a chance, man. Like, oh my god. Lupin the Third, the first, as in the first full 3D CG animated film that Lupin is essentially putting himself in throughout the entirety of his runtime. Even though this guy's been around since the 80s, it's like what they were able to accomplish. I mean, it's a very simple Lupin film. The majority of it is just like any other just escapade that Lupin has to go through, whether it's navigating a dungeon, saving a damsel in distress, getting him and his team together to try and find out this mystery sort of like rags to riches sort of embodiment that they're able to find, and then all come together and try and like dupe, deceive, and figure out how they're able to get their edge over the antagonist of the film. It's very, very bare bones for the rest of it. The closest movie that I would probably like put this towards would probably just be like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I mean, not only the fact that that Nazis are essentially like a huge part of this movie, it's just like the whole like all the connections that Indy has into the comparison that you're able to go through towards like Lupin and Goemon and Fujiko, like just everybody that's able to become an ensemble cast in the majority of the film is absolutely fantastic, and the film is gorgeous. Like, I really love the design. I really love how Lupin was able to transition into 3D, because he's just such a wacky embodiment and like incredibly cartoonish. Like, it doesn't matter how wacky and ridiculously fluid his movements are. It's like that's definitely him. He's like a Hanna-Barbera character. Like he just moves to his own tune in whatever way the story needs him to be, and however he needs in order to like get through and complete the mission at hand. And so, like, Lupin would have been fantastic. I mean, in the same deal of the success back in 2016, or which in this case would have been the 2017 Oscars that people would have expected. I was about to say Miyazaki. No, Makoto Shinkai's Your Name, in the sense that people were expecting that, where it's like, it made waves in Japan, it made waves across East Asia, and it made waves across the world. There's no fucking way that the Academy can completely ignore this kind of success to a movie, and they just leave it down. And Your Name doesn't get nominated for Oscar. I was not surprised that Demon Slayer's movie, even though I haven't seen it, I can't, beyond a shadow of a doubt, like, write off its success. It's the number one movie from Japan. Like, it is at the top of the box office inside the majority of the country. Like, there's no other movie that has done what it's done. I can understand that it was a huge, like, set of circumstances that led it to the success that it did. But I can only imagine, due to Studio Ufotable's like production and scheduling and the overall quality that they are able to produce, that the reason that, like, it wasn't just happenstance. It wasn't, you couldn't have put any movie in that position and give it the amount of success that it did. There's some remnant of quality that Mugen Train has been able to accomplish, and I cannot wait until it comes out for the West. For North America, tickets are on sale April 9th. Go at your own progression and get them while you can, considering that I could only imagine that as soon as those tickets hit the market, everybody is going to be jumping on there as soon as they can, just so they can at least get into a theater. It's going to be concerning It is going to be dangerous, considering that we're still in the middle of a pandemic, but take precaution, and if this is that important to you, then go for it. The only thing that would have made me angrier than that with no films being nominated would have been just Earwig and The Witch being nominated. Because I understand this is Goro Miyazaki. This is technically Studio Ghibli, and they're trying to create, a 3D CG picture in the same vein as Lupin to try and transition into, that new kind of production and that streamline and that pipeline, just to kind of see where that goes. Look, hate is a very strong word. I sincerely disliked the movie with the style and the pacing and what essentially the characters were going through, and especially considering that the trailers, the promotional art were all leaning towards some sort of more musical-based story, was so minuscule in comparison to everything else that happened in the movie. And the kicker was that Hayao Miyazaki was also not on planning, but he did a handful of storyboards, or a handful of not promotional drawing, but essentially pre-post. I'm such an idiot. Pre-production sketches on what this was, because this is a children's story. This is literally a hand-drawn story. But they went with 3D CG, and then for the entirety of the credits, it was this really beautiful watercolor pastel sort of artwork that should have been the movie. It was so much more of a beautiful aesthetic for this film, but they decided to turn it into 3D CG just because they could, and just because they wanted to see how the project would move in that semblance of an idea and in that kind of production, and it didn't work. I strongly dislike this movie. I'm sorry, Goro. You did Tales of Earthsea, and it's I really underappreciate that. The one thing that I can give Goro Miyazaki would have been From Up on Poppy Hill. That is the one movie I'm going to give because I really enjoyed that film. Everything else has just been a little bit slipshod, and I really don't know how this is going to backfire, considering that if this is what you decide to show as a primer to the majority of the producers at Ghibli saying, hey, we can do this, it kind of lightens the workload on production. This is not it, dude. This is fucking not it. First season of Netflix's live-action Cowboy Bebop show has finished filming. Even with the hype that I'm deciding to bring in here, you have absolutely no idea how low my expectations are. You have no idea. It's kind of unfortunate that production has been dragged through, considering that one of the main actors he injured himself, and that lost several months of production time leading into COVID, and completely dragging everything else back down a couple of months. It definitely sucks that that kind of production schedule really grinds with the majority of the people in the crew and the actors and everybody else. But look, I'll watch it, but you have no idea how low my expectations are for this adaptation. Because there has never been that kind of anime adaptation that's been brought into live action where it gives justice and more than enough of reverential or a nod to the source material. It hasn't happened yet. And you're doing this with Cowboy Bebop, and I understand that it's a handful of episodes that we're going for an episodic series, and it works like that, but you have no idea. My expectations are low, but the rest of the community are going to just bite at the slightest hint of blood, at the slightest hint of mal quality that if this decides to air on. I don't know. Here, let me see. Through the ANN article, so far there's no concrete. Yeah, there's definitely no concrete date for when this is coming out, but it's I'm definitely just gonna call it early to mid 22. There's no way that this is gonna be coming out this year, but just definitely give it time. I really need to keep rocketing through these. Let's see, Higurashi is going to be getting another season for Go. If there's anything I can say, the new Higurashi Go, it is not good for newcomers. Like, this is a sequel. This is literally a sequel. Whatever people were trying to advertise or leaving through, like, go, oh yeah, no, it's a side project that's leading into the majority of the other stuff that you would know, and it's like equal for like newcomers and like old veterans alike. It's like, no, this is a sequel. Do not go into this blind. Watch the original first. If you are ever interested in getting into this kind of thriller show, watch the original first. That is all I have to say. It is going to be getting a sequel, Higurashi Sotsu, so we will be getting more content like this later in the year or early 2022, but just watch the original. Watch the original first. In lighter news, the Aria Benedizione, they're going to be getting a winter, never mind, that's the winter 2020 opening revealed, never mind. It's going to be coming out later, yikes. I think it's going to be later in the year, I hope. Oh, okay, so it's already opened. It's already opened in Japan, but I have no idea when it's going to be coming out west. But to be fair, I really loved Aria, and I'm just going to continue watching whatever they decide to put out, considering that it's more than enough worth the watch. Tokyo Olympic Paralympic Games have banned overseas spectators. They are expected to keep going through with it July 23rd. It's a shame that they won't be able to get that kind of revenue from the tourists and the majority of the spectators that are coming through the attraction. I will still watch it regardless, because honestly, I really hope that they are able to get some modicum of success through this. Fuck, Fruits Basket. It's already, the first episode's already aired. Considering that they're doing the first 2 episodes dubbed. They have already aired the first episode as of March 21st, and the second Fruits Basket episode, I'm pretty sure, is going to be on March 28th, and those are both dubbed. I love this series, and the final 13 episodes, supposedly 13 episodes, considering that that's going to be an entirely other can of worms that I'll probably jump into a recent episode. The only piece of information that we know is that it's going to be 63 episodes total, and the final season is going to be 13 episodes. So, the first 2 episodes of the final season will have already aired, and I still need to wait an additional episode because I was never a part of the initial crowd of people that watched it, or watched the original 25 episode run in the 2000s, but what I have seen already from the first 2 seasons, that of the remake that I have now, it's my front runner for being like my favorite shoujo of all time. So, I just want it, for both them and for everybody else, for it to stick the landing, because we are all hoping for success on this show. Fuck. U.S. Department extends antitrust review of Sony's proposed acquisition of Crunchyroll. I will talk about this on a later episode, because there is no way I can do this report justice, in the sense that we know that Crunchyroll was supposed to be acquired by Sony, who also has a majority hold on Funimation, which would almost like which would definitely take the majority of anime streaming services for the majority of the world. But it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to like really get back to you on this one, because it's just, dude, this could delay the sale by several months and could also potentially kill it. So I am going to have to jump back onto this when I am more than sufficiently reviewed enough on this to actually give it. But it's like, oh boy, this is actually massive for both of them. Here comes the theme of this episode. My Hero Academia, it's the first film's teaser is gonna be like popping up, and you know what? It kind of sucks, cause we're going to be getting an August 6th opening in Japan, which means we're going to be having another My Hero Academia movie by the end of 2021, and everybody would be asking, yo, isn't that sick? And I'm thinking, no, it's not fucking sick, because as Bones has shown, they know that they cannot take 2 separate projects from the same franchise without one of them being entirely, dragged through the mud. Okay, dragged through the mud is a hyperbole here, but it's just kind of like, what the second movie was able to take away from season 4 was noticeable, and going into, because look, My Hero Academia season 5, it is airing for spring 21. It is the first transitional, the promotional episode is already out for season 5, and it's just kind of like, I'm not really going to be like writing too much on it. Like, a handful of jokes were good, but this is literally just a filler episode. It's a transition and to fill people in because they know it's like, yo, you've been out of the loop for more than a year. Let me fill you in. But it's just, I don't know, dude. This is the 5th season. We already know what we're getting ourselves into. This doesn't have to be a repeat of the first movie that I watched where the first 20 minutes of the program was just recap telling, hey, guess what, guys? I know you're all here to watch the first My Hero Academia movie, but let's just give ourselves a 10 plus 10 minute recap of the entirety of the show so far. It's like, dude, we already know what we're walking ourselves into. Just give us the movie, please. It was so ridiculous. Oh my god. Okay. I think I'll go on this. Like, if you're talking about Monkey's Paw, like, me and my buddy were talking about this, and it was more important for me specifically because it was just like, look, dude, we haven't got a hockey anime yet. And I am, like, begging for, like, some sort of adaptation. There's a handful of hockey manga out there. Like, none of them are very prevalent, and definitely not to the same level as, like, say, Haikyuu, or Slam Dunk, or Kuroko no Basket. But it's like, dude, I really want to see, like, hockey on the anime stage. And then the Monkey's Paw curls one in, and it's just, let's do a cute girls doing cute things show all about hockey. And I'm thinking, yes and no at the same time, because it's just gonna be like, oh yeah, no, cool. I mean, yeah, we get this kind of content. This is probably going to be the first, like, ice skating project in, like, over 2 decades, but it's like, I don't even know, dude. I'm gonna have to, like, watch the trailer for this because, like, same deal next week, but, like, there is absolutely nothing that is getting me hyped about this in the sense that, oh, kind of cool, I can recognize, like, all the drills that they're doing, but it's just gonna be, like, cute girls doing hockey things. Like, I should be more excited about this, but I'm not. I don't know, man. Oh, boy. I should be excited. I should be happy. I went through the majority of this and expected, like, something more, but guess what, guys? This is the shit that we're walking into. This episode is literally the entire one is just, you know, it's only game. Why you have to be mad? It's like, I don't know. I decided to jump into it and just kind of think, okay, this is it. Like, I'm fucking over it. Like, at this point in time, it's just, I've done enough positive works around the show. I've had it, I've had it too good for too long, and I really need to just vent about, like, a handful of bad shows that have been popping up over the past couple of years, just to kind of, like, going through. It's like, oh yeah, no, everything that you say about anime is great, and everything that you watch is absolutely loved. It's like, buddy, there are more than enough shows that I can jump into this where I expect something great. Any semblance of, like, oh boy, this is actually something that I could, like, support down the line. And it just backfires horribly. Look, okay, let's just start with something very minute. Like, something that, where it was only one major thing that was a part of the series that really rubbed me the wrong way. So let's just start with like the only sports one of the category, which would have been Hanebado, based off of a manga series written and published by Kodansha back in 2013. Ended up getting an anime adaptation in 2018, and by the second episode, people on Reddit were definitely, like, hyping it up, and it's like, oh shit, we got a hardcore badminton anime, and I'm like, okay, sure, I love badminton, I play badminton, I'm in. The production on this series is knocked out of the park. Like, the actual badminton matches are really fucking good. The motions and the momentum and the dynamicism between the characters and the one-on-one matches are honestly fantastic. It was just the mother of the supporting main character. I was just like, what the fuck am I watching a goddamn, like, K-drama, J-drama, like, something so ridiculous in that it's just kind of like, because the problem is that if it was just one character that this mother affected, it would have been totally fine, because even though she's a main character, it doesn't go through. No, like, this mother goes through and, like, affects the majority of the female cast, and is just kind of like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to remove myself from your life because you lost a badminton match while you were sick. And I'm just thinking, like, you cunt. there's no other way to go. And she comes in at the end of the season, like, trying to like legitimize and like give some sort of semblance of like reality or reason to her decision, and it's like, no, you are a piece of shit mother, and there's no reason that you should ever step towards like your daughter ever again, considering like the mental trauma that you decided to put her through. And it's just kind of like ridiculous. If you watch this from like an anti-drama or like just from a production's point of view, there's a lot to enjoy. But it was just kind of like, how many like characters in this show that get like caught up in her mother's bullshit is just kind of like, dude, there's no fucking reason why this should be happening. Oh my fucking god. I guess like same deal where it's the exact opposite problem where let's just jump into a show from 2011, Gosick. So Gosick is carried on Victorique. She is the shining light of this series, and her mental trauma and her growth and the majority of the mysteries that she has to solve at its center is the core and what is so great about this series. Too bad everybody else in this show fucking sucks, though. Because, like, her father is, like, a big enough antagonist, but her brother's pompadour is just so fucking out there that I cannot take him seriously. And then, like, dude, her main love interest, Cujo, oh my god, it's so annoyingly cringeworthy. Like, the fact that he is the one that brings her out of her shell, like, he is such adult, and okay, putting it lightly, he's such a fucking idiot that it's so, the only reason that he is allowed is because of his physical prowess. Like that is it. Like, that is the only reason. He climbs an entire flight of stairs, and like, I don't think, like, I can't remember if he was the only one to climb like that many stairs just to like see Victorique at the very top of it, and like he was the only person to do it just because his legs didn't give out. But it's like, oh my god, dude, he is so fucking bland. It is ridiculous. And I honestly think one of the most baffling scenarios in anime period was so there's an arc where Victorique and Cujo end up going to this like a remote town, and they're trying to figure out this murder or like something, or some like family turmoil that's going through, and it turns out to be the maid. And this maid, so the scenario is she goes crazy, she's like burning parts of, like, flames are starting up all across the village just so she can like make her way out and like escape with her life and try to cause as much chaos just so she can like evade the majority of the people who want her dead. But the way that the anime directs that is so slipshod and so fucking ridiculous that the majority of it, let's just put it this way, the 10-second cut that happens where it's like, okay, the maid is brought up as insane. She has a broken lamp in her hand where she's going to light the fires. It pans out to the entire village, and you see fire light up, fire light up, fire light up, fire light out, and then we're all at this bridge, and Cujo is trying to protect Victorique at the middle of it, and this maid is like swiping, like thrusting back and forth, trying to kill Cujo, and Cujo is unarmed, I'm pretty sure at this point. So like all she would have needed to do, because Cujo was like standing with his arms in an X-cross formation, like X-Force, and all she needed to do was like get him in the gut, but it's like, nah, I'm gonna go by your right and then graze your arm, and then I'm gonna go by your left and graze your other arm, and then I'm gonna go by your right again, and then I'm going to like graze your thigh. It was so fucking ridiculous. And it's all like mained around Cujo, because if it was just Victorica and like one of her own like assets or butlers, like basically just helping her like protect her, and if they weren't like romantically involved with her, it would have just been a lot simpler. But it's like Kazuya Kujo is such an unremarkable character that it angered me every single time he was on screen, because he was there to physically protect and barricade against Victorica, and like and be the what is it? The Watson in the equation, the quote unquote Watson in the equation, just to ask Victoria, yo, what's going on? How is this possible? Why is this body there, but the weapon is on the other side of the city? And it's just, oh my god, it was so horrible going through the majority of this. It's absolutely nuts. Makaku City Actors is based off of a series of music videos called Kagero Days. And you could take the majority of those music videos that were put on YouTube and, like, piece the story together. But, like, this was definitely done by the Chef B team as, like, a side project, because everything revolving around this with the characters, with, like, setting up and, like, stretching this out, I definitely feel like instead of making this a 24-minute times 12 episode series was a mistake, and you didn't need to drag it out. All you needed to do was probably like cut it in half and make it a series of shorts. You would have had a much better way to spread out your staff and your assets to like condense and make this stuff as good as it was. And I only say this just because about how Kagero, like how good the music videos for Kagero Days are. Like, go watch those on YouTube. Like, those are honestly great, and you could get the entirety of the story just from those. But then the 12-episode series that ended up coming out at the time was just so mediocre and underwhelming that you knew this was done by a B team, and you knew that this was just a side project, like just to try and complete for the rest of them, just so they didn't have to burden the main staff from working on the project. It was so unfortunate. Like, and the majority of this stuff is from like just from projects and content that I actually like really enjoyed and have a personal connection with. Sword Art Online doesn't. No, that's right. We've gotten to the Sword Art Online bashing part of this episode, because it was just, look, let me just put it this way. The first 15 episodes that I was watching at the time when I was 16 was baller as fuck. This was like when I was 16, and this was like one of the first 20 shows, one of the first 20 anime that I ever watched. Like, this was a week by week moment for me. Like, this was one of my favorite pieces of 20-minute entertainment that I had throughout the entirety of that sect. And then Alfheim happened. And I think episodes, 15 to 24 or 16 to 24 of the first season of Sword Art Online basically just told me, hey, you're allowed to criticize stuff that you don't like. You are allowed to like point out things that are wrong about the pieces of media that you enjoy. And from that point on, it was just, it's like, oh, so this is the piece of work that I realized that I'm going to watch like most of the way through and realize, oh, this is just bad. Like, it's bad writing, it's bad characters. This is when I actually have to point myself in the right direction just so I know which characters to follow and if they're actually set up correctly. Because by the time the first season ended, I was like, this is weird. This didn't need to happen. There was no reason for you to just take out one of like your strongest female characters and just throw her in a birdcage and then wait a year, and then season 2 of Sword Art Online comes out for Gun Gale Online, and then it's gone to the point where it's like, oh fuck, we've come full circle. And I really love to hate this show, because there is nothing good about it at all. Like, there's just nothing to go, like, there's nothing to go through, not on a game standpoint, not on a character standpoint, not on a production standpoint, not on like anything. Like, there was nothing positive for me to take out of this series other than actually like love hating it. There was nothing else for me to enjoy about this. And so we got to the end of it, and I understand, like, let's just put it this way. I stopped watching SAO just before the Mother's Rosario arc, where apparently it gets good, and, like, you have this really tragic female character that bonds with Asuna, and, like, there's nothing else that anybody can do, and it's just, like, incredibly, like, sad face, and everything else goes. But it's just, dude, I could not care. Like, I don't care about any of these characters. Like, nothing goes through, and it's just, like, guess what? You decided to put character development into Shinon, but she's just going to be the side harem at this point. Like, you know she's not going to be a part of any, like, major event that's going to go through. It's like, oh, yeah, no, but she's definitely going to be able to, like, come into her own and, like, be a main character. It's like, not when she's, like, staying in Kirito's shadow, dude. Like, Kirito, like, I could do an entire episode about why I hate Kirito at this point, but it's like, at this point in time, the best... I have not watched Alicization. I have not watched, like, the Mother's Rosario or, like, anything, like, related. What people are saying at this point in time, the best parts about SAO are when Kirito is sidelined and Kirito is not the main character. That is all I've heard from the recent stuff of SAO. And it's just like, thank God I didn't waste my time with any of this stuff. In terms of sequel series, of stuff that I just could not write as the same piece of work, the first time that ever happened to me would have been back in 2014 with the second season of Psycho Pass. So, like, dude, I just cannot exaggerate how much that this is not the same show. If you watched the first season of Psycho Pass, written by Gen Urobuchi, and enjoyed the world, the setup, how exactly the world has been bent by Sybil's will, and how the majority of the populace has to adapt and meld within that society, boy, you are not going to like the second season. You are not you're putting yourself into a good position by just, like, forwarding yourself, what is supposed to be moving yourself through the next supposed part of this ever-expanding story, because it's not the same story. It is not. You have the same characters that react in kind of the same way that you would expect to, but all of the new characters that they decide to incorporate into this world are either slipshod and shoehorned in at best, and then just, like, completely misaligned and misread characters about what they believe that how they affect the system and how it's supposed to, because it's just, I don't know, dude. Like, one of the main enforcers that go through the second season is just kind of like, oh yeah, no, he's criminally asymptomatic, and he's allowed to be like a guard dog or a dog or enforcer. That's what it was, and it's supposed to shift our entire perspective on this world. And it's like, nah, dude, he's just, like, really fucking crazy. And the story is just, like, writing him in where it's like, yeah, this is supposed to be a complete contradiction to what the system is supposed to be, especially with the main villain, who is literally, the main villain is just several different children sewn together with different organs and different hands and different feet and different, like, body parts to create, like, one person. And Sybil is supposed to acknowledge that as, like, several different consciouses, like, put together as one, or it's like, oh yeah, dude, I've got the right hand of my buddy Phil, who is in the same grade as me, and I can feel his influence, like, on my body. It's like, oh my fucking god, you can't be fucking serious. Oh my. And, like, after that, look, Psycho Pass Season 3 was enjoyable to a degree with a different set of main characters, and then the movies after that were just, if I wiped it and like watched the sequel Psycho Pass Season 3 movies as, like, Die Hard films, as, like, 80s, 90s sci-fi action films, I had a blast, dude. These were, like, incredibly fun, like, well-paced action scenes, one by one. But if you decide to inject any part of the original Psycho Pass, like, Season 1 DNA into any logic, any thought, any semblance of a scenario into it, it just all falls apart. Like, if you watch the Psycho Pass Season 3 or Season 3 movies with the same perspective as the Season 1 world building, like, everything is just dog shit. But if you can somehow write all of that off and then just like literally watch the entire like set of movies as just like a die-hard action flick, then dude, you will have a good time. It'll honestly be something that you would enjoy. Something that I didn't enjoy, though, Oh boy. The entirety of what the production behind the scenes of a certain magical index. So what I had heard was that they had two options, which was either like, so JC staff had to either just remake the first two seasons of a certain magical index from scratch and then like push it forward as a new product, or just continue on and then just make the third season, which covered, I think, 8 light novels, and condense those into 26 episodes and try and make it work and see what happens. Fucking mistake, dude. Oh my god. This was... I'm trying to think what the rest of it were. So it's like there were a handful of series in the middle of the 2010s who were just kind of like, hey boys, guess what? We are never going to get a season 2/season 3. These are the shows that are just going to get thrown by the wayside and are never going to be able to see another piece of their adaptation ever again. So one of them, thankfully, hey boys, guess what? First one was Devil is a Part-Timer. Devil is a Part-Timer is getting a second season at some point in time, and that is hype. So that was the first one that got broken. Or, sorry, that was the second one, I guess, that got broken. The one of the original ones would have been Spice and Wolf, and so Spice and Wolf is just never going to get a second season, which is definitely unfortunate. The light novels are completed, and they've already made a VR Switch game that is based around the hot springs that are at the end game of the series, with Holo and Lawrence's daughter. But I don't think we're ever going to be getting a full rendition of Spice and Wolf. I have all of the light novels downloaded on my phone. Thanks, Bookwalker. But it's going to be a while before I jump into that. It's going to take even longer, considering that I know what the end game is, even though I know that they're happy, but I want to see how they get to that point. Because I love those characters. I really do. And the same deal with certain magical index, because I'm trying to think. So it's a little bit of like a back and forth. I think I put like seasons 1 and 2 of a certain magical index at around a 6, and the sisters arc of like and then I put like Railgun season 1 at a 6, and then season 2, the sisters arc, at like an 8. Like, I really liked it, but it was the same deal. Index season 3 when nobody is like, we're never going to be able, even though we know that there are over a dozen light novels that are still like through publication, and then many more that are going to be coming. We're never going to get an Index Season 3, and then Index Season 3 gets announced, and everybody gets hype, and we're all incredibly excited because we know exactly what's going to happen. I read the entirety of the remaining novels that were leading up to New Testament. I know what leads up to Index Season 3. We had the majority of the stuff that was going into Academy City. We had the World War III arc that was finally going to be getting adapted. Everything was lining up, and it was a piece. God, there is nothing that I can say that would do it justice into the entire echelon of how fucking garbage it was. You have no idea. Oh my god, because when you're reading a light novel, everything just seems better in your head, and the majority of the stuff that you imagine that the characters are doing, even though the novels give more than enough of an ample adaptation, or an ample scenario for you to work with to try and like visualize what essentially is going to happen. And it just didn't. And they just didn't. They just didn't put effort into it. They because they had multiple projects that they had to work on. But because they decided that this was the end game and that this is what they decided to do, they had to force the project through, and this is what we ended up getting, dude. Oh my god, it's so not worth it. I didn't watch Railgun Delta, which is the most recent Railgun series that came out. And at this point in time, like, all I gotta say is just go watch Railgun. It just, because I don't know. I can't in good conscience because I know that it's like a guilty pleasure watching the first like season or two of Index, because it focuses more on the religious and psychological aspect of Academy City, but it's the religious aspect inside of Academy City, which is a city built on science and espers and like psychic powers that are based around science. And that is something that is a lot more interesting. And if there's anything that I have to point people towards, is that if you are going to get into anything related around a certain magical index or a certain magical railgun, a certain scientific railgun, just go into railgun. Because I know that it is of a higher quality than anything else that we've gotten inside of the Index series. And if they do the New Testament light novels, that's way down the road if they do it at all. So it's just not... Guys, it is not worth it. Just watch Railgun, because that is all I have to say about that. So you don't have to worry about any other pieces of the puzzle that we ended up missing and we weren't able to enjoy to the fullest, which was incredibly disappointing on our part. So, oh boy. Cream of the crop. Probably my least favorite. I think so not these ones, even though they're on the list. So stuff like Darling in the Franxx, stuff like Bunny Girl Senpai. I'm sorry, Reddit, I did not like these, even though they had promising beginnings, but they didn't have satisfactory ends. I'll have an episode where I go through the entirety of my relationship with like our anime, that subreddit, and just kind of like seeing how they were adapting towards that. But I'll leave it out for now. But in this case, I've got to talk about what, personally, to me, is my least favorite set of series. And if I had to, like, off the top of my head, FLCL, Progressive and Alternative. Because I hate the production and I hate myself for giving any semblance of hope and thought and hype towards anything that they were going to go through. Because I knew going into it was going to be Production IG, and I knew that the Pillows were going to be back, and a month before this series aired on Adult Swim, they put out the soundtrack from the Pillows, and I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. I liked the music. I worked out to it. I ran to it. I was anticipating anything related towards quality leading up to this series. And you have no idea how little that decided to live up to whatever its predecessors were. I personally will admit, I fell into the trap of nostalgia because I love Fooly Cooly. I seriously enjoy what that series was able to accomplish in 6 episodes. What it did in terms of a production standpoint, and what it was able to like mold through with action, with romance, with comedy, with drama, with a not an aging, but not a growing up story, a coming of age story. And what it's able to accomplish in those 6 episodes, and what the Pillows were able to contribute with that series, I would need an entire episode to go through the majority of what I want to talk about this series. But Progressive and Alternative, fucking dog shit. Absolute fucking trash. Like, I understand that, like, trash is definitely something that you can also attribute to something like, oh yeah, no, it's trash, but I love it. No. Like, garbage. Filth. Vermin. The amount of, not vigor, and vitriol that I have towards this series is just so understated, you have no idea. So I think it was Progressive first. Yes, it was Progressive first that I watched, and Haruko is a part of it, and also a separate entity of her is also a part of it, which is just... I really feel like I'm going to have to go through another entire episode about what I love about Fooly Cooly and what I hate about Progressive and Alternative. I'm going to have to put that down as, like, another bit. But it's just like, you know, like, with so much content that has been coming out nowadays, which is like homages and references to the majority of the content that came out in like the early 2000s and the 90s, and like bringing it back, like, I would say the most positive aspect, or the most positive series that I can bring to light about that is like Creed. Like, dude, Rocky 1, 2, 3, and 4, 3 and 4 being incredibly cheesy, like, people still love that stuff, and you realize why people, like, really, like, appreciate and enjoy that stuff in the first place. But, like, progressive and alternative, let's go through progressive first, considering that it's just like, girl with cat ear headphones doesn't get the world around her, and this one dude who, like, works his ass off just to, like, help his impoverished family just, like, kind of flows over the radar, and they bring through, like, one of the original, like, aspects to the first show, which is, like, I'm about to overflow, which they always reference as sexual for some reason, which is understandable, because it's just kind of like, oh, you know, being able to overflow and all of your, like, mental capacity, it's like, oh, dude, I'm horny, like, there's nothing I can do, I'm a teenager and I'm horny and there's nothing I can do, but it's just kind of like, what the original was able to do was that I'm about to overflow is just stress of any kind. Like, the majority of the stuff that happened in the original series was just, like, incredible, like, mental trauma being brought to the forefront and realizing that it's not what you thought it was, where it was just, no, it's not because I like this dude, it's just because the majority of the relationship that I had with him was a lie, and he never really cared about me, and it's just, oh my god, I'm going to overflow, because the majority of the stress is finally being able to, like, bring forth, and instead of being, like, the real world, which brings us into, like, a standard panic attack, it's just going to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to, like, open an interdimensional portal, and robots will fight it out, because it was just that fucking off the wall and that insane. But I don't know, like, all the characters inside of Progressive are just so fucking, like, minuscule and ridiculously, like, underdeveloped, and stupid is definitely, like, a strong but just underwhelming word, and an easy word for me to, like, just write off the majority of this cast, but it was just, I was angry so much of the time watching this, considering that it was just kind of like, I was so waiting for like, the references to the previous work, where it was just kind of like, okay, so they brought back Kanti, they brought back Haruko, so are any of the or is anybody, and they brought back Amuro, of all guys, and it's like, he's exactly what you think he is. He's a bitter adult because he hasn't moved past the majority of the mistakes that he did previously, and then it's just like, they're trying to give him, like, a redemption arc, but it's like, the dude already went through what he did in like, the original Fooly Cooly, so there's no reason for you to give him the time of day. Like, there's nothing that you need to give this character. And then it was just, I was waiting for the entire episode to be like, yo, dude, Haruko's back, but, like, you're gonna bring back Amuro, why not bring back Naota? Like, if you brought back Naota as, like, a late teens, early 20s sort of dude, and he rips out a bass guitar, I would have lost my goddamn mind. And it would have been, like, one of the hypest moments of this, like, of this series that is ripping off, like, look, ripping off is definitely, like, there's so much inspiration, like, that you would have to bring off of this, but it's just, like, ripping from all of the old stuff. There's nothing original about this series. It is just trying to bring back old assets and old, like really rang out ideas from, like, the late 90s, early 2000s, just to try and get something, like, palpable as a product, just to try and give something relevant that they could actually be able to sell to people. And it didn't fucking work, because even though the music from the Pillows was good, it didn't meld with any of the scenes that was actually going into. It was literally just trying to create a fucking music video that people would literally just overlay onto the track of any of the fight scenes that were going through. And it's like, oh yeah, no, what about, like, any thematic resonance, or anything that was related to the music that was being played, or anything that would be able to actually, like, pace the fight better, to actually, like, match and line up to the music, like, anything that you could actually put into a music video, like, hey, that'd be fucking good, but guess what? Nothing lines up. Nothing is even worth it. It is absolutely fucking maddening that anybody would actually, like, jump into this, like, watching FLCL, enjoying the original one, and, like, jump and deciding to, like, give this show an opportunity, and just think, wow, I actually got something out of this. It's like, no, this is so fucking worthless. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's a cash grab. Well, like, what are you, like, why do you have anything to do? Say, like, why would you even promote it? Why would you even, like, say it's like, you were the one that watched it, so why would we even, like, give any shit about your opinion? It's like, man, it's because I'm putting this out there so you don't have to. I am pulling a fucking nostalgia critic and just saying, hey, I remember it so you don't have to. Nobody needs to watch this fucking show. Nobody. And so, let's see. Alternative was the other. So these are both like 6-episode pieces that go through and like tell 2 different stories with 2 different characters with Harahara Haruko as its center, but just nothing really goes through. The only thing, to be fair, the only good thing that Alternative does for any part of its runtime is just kind of being like, oh yeah, no, one character is moving away from another character, and they don't know if they're friends, but the time they spent together is precious, and they don't know if they'll ever see each other again. Where it's like, if you had a friend, like back in your childhood, and they were moving away, and you didn't know if they were ever going to come back, and everything was going to go, and if anything was going to go well, and if you would ever see them again, it was just going to be like, okay, well, fuck. It's like, it sucks. I really hope you're happy with where you're going, because I know it's going to be a long time before I ever see you again, and I really hope you know that I cherish the time that we spent together. And I've had that moment, and I've had that personal moment with like a buddy of mine from my childhood, Andrew, who just went to the other side of the country, and I wouldn't see him again for, in this case, another 8 years. But it was just, even with that, like, mental, with that mental scenario imprinted onto my mind, nothing else inside of the series, like, latched onto me. None of it was even remotely close to anything that it was able to convey. All the characters were just so unbelievably bland. All of the animation was just kind of like, oh yeah, no, we'll just throw some CG in there, considering that there's absolutely nothing else that we can do, because we're trying to make this product all built on the nostalgia of everybody else that watched it, because there's absolutely nothing else that we can do. So yeah, we don't have any of the original staff, we don't have any of the original creative minds behind this, so let's just bring in the pillows. It's like, oh my god. The only positive thing I can say about these 2 series is that the Pillows made a pretty baller soundtrack to the rest of this. And I would definitely recommend going to listen to it on Spotify, because it's pretty good. Like, I really enjoyed this stuff when I was going through the majority of it and listening to it in the months that were leading up to actually watching Progressive and Alternative. But if there is anything that I can say leading up to the final of this, is that just don't fucking watch Progressive and Alternative. Just leave those to die as a completely produced and alternatively aptly set marketed product towards anybody who had any semblance of a positive reminder and a positive outlook throughout any of the FLCL production. Because honestly, none of it is worth it. And the only positive thing that I can take out of any of this, to any of you that have decided to jump through this fucking near hour-long rant to literally just sit here and watch me vent and vacate the majority of the negative thoughts that I have been able to go through today, the only positive outlook that I can go out and give to all of you that have decided to stick around for this long, go watch Fooly FLCL. Furikuri. That is all that I can give you. The soundtrack, the length, it is only 6 20 to 25 minute episodes long. That is all you need to do. And honestly, if you decide to give this show a watch and you horrifically decide to take the same path that I did and give Progressive and Alternative a shot, just don't. Just read what you found online. Just take the majority of the information that has been given to you beyond that and just take that as fact, considering that regardless of what the scores on this, regardless if it's stated as a 6, regardless if it's stated as a 6.5, 7, it's not worth it. Fooly Cooly, the original, is worth it. The pillows are worth it. And that's all I have to say about that.